Hello and welcome to another ProGuides video. 9.16 patch released 4 new champions and a whole new synergy together. Yeah, sure, most of you may have already heard about them from our champion tier list video or our top carries video, but we're here to give you an even more in-depth guide on everything you need to know about these 4 units. What items do I need to build? How do I position them? How do I counter them? As with any new patches, everyone loves trying them out, so this becomes crucial information to winning. Before we give you the answer to all these questions, remember to check out our link below at ProGuides.com for more information created from our professionals to guide you through your TFT experience. There's not only builds, but guides, mechanics, tutorials, and much more. Alright, so Hextech. Let's get started by understanding the synergy. Hextech Synergy. The Hextech Synergy is essentially an item destroyer. An enemy's unit that has items equipped is chosen at random at the start of combat, and their items, along with any units 1 hex away, would become disabled for 8 seconds. The 8 seconds are extremely long, and a great advantage at the start of combat. If you're able to get 4 Hextechs, the radius becomes 2 hexes, which is detrimental towards an enemy's positioning, forcing them to spread their units to avoid the buff. There's a Hextech champion at almost every single tier, one at common, one at uncommon, one at rare, and one at epic, making it very easy to have the first synergy proc, which only requires 2 units. We recommend to normally have 2 Hextechs, which gives you the most flexibility to adding different types of synergies to your composition. Start off with the 1 and 2 cost unit, and then change them out mid to late game with your 3 and 4 cost ones, allowing you to upgrade your units while keeping the synergy still throughout the whole game. Goodbye, enemy team's items. Many people are already petitioning for the nerf of Hextechs at 2 units, but for the time being, this is our new meta. So what is the anti-meta? How do we counter them? First is positioning, which is quite simple. It's most common for players to run only 2 Hextechs, so you'll rarely be forced to completely split up your units. Simply have a unit with no items in between your units that does. Additionally, if you're having a rough item RNG game and you see many Hextech compositions, avoid putting all your items on one sole unit. As mentioned, it is a random pick at the start of combat, but if you only have 1 unit that has 3 items equipped, it's guaranteed to target that unit. But let's say you've already done that and suddenly your enemies decide to build Hextech to counter you. Wait for the next carousel or neutral minion round and immediately put the item that you get on a different unit. That way the changes are at least decreased to 50%. Also, avoid items like Locket of the Iron Solari or Zephyr in the late game if you see Hex comps, as if they are disabled, you will not get the effects of the items after the 8 seconds are up. Always remember to look at your enemy's composition throughout the game to know how many Hextech players you're going against. Now, to learn about the units. First, we have the 1-cost champion, Camille. Camille is a Blade Master, and while looking very thick, her skills and stats may not be as impressive. Camille's ability, Hextech Ultimatum, will root the target she is attacking and cause a taunt, making her target a priority for others to attack. She heavily reminds us of Fiora, who is another Blade Master whose ability focuses solely on 1 minion. We've deemed Fiora has a C tier list, so let's see how Camille compares to her. So solely from their abilities, Fiora's is a stun that only costs 75 mana, whereas Camille is a root that costs 150 mana. Although the taunt is decent to get all units to focus on 1 enemy, it can also be detrimental if Camille has been hitting a super tank, which is very possible as she's a melee unit that is bound to hit enemies front line. Be very careful not to put her across a unit with a Thornmail or Guardian Angel. After costing twice the amount of mana to get her ability off, there are many times that she dies before she's even able to use it. She does start off with 150 health points more than Fiora and a slight increase in damage. However, overall, we would deem her worse than Fiora for the early game, but slightly better for the mid game. Early game, Noble Synergy is stronger than Hextech Synergy. This is because early game, not many teams will have OP items on their units yet, but having an HP regeneration and extra armor unit really gives you the advantage to winning the early rounds. From mid to late game is where Hextech Synergy really shines, as it is an item destroyer, but same as Fiora, you will most likely be looking for the other units as a replacement. Now, if you're like, I want to use her though, then no worries, we'll teach you how. Majority of the times that you want to use Camille is if you decide for an early 3 Blade Master buff that will eventually transition to 6 Blade Masters, or because she was a quick level 2 unit you got from RNG. First, for position, it is best on the corner spots or behind the front lines. You want her to have easy access to attacking since she's a melee unit, but you don't want her to be a primary tank as she will die quickly without getting her abilities procced. For items, we recommend that you build the classic sustainability items for Blade Masters. The first way is attack speed and lifesteal. So items like Bloodthirster, Gwynsu's, or Phantom Dancer is one build to get her to deal lots of damage while surviving. Another option for her build is to simply increase her tankiness. So Warmogs, Guardian Angels, and Phantom Dancer, which can guarantee her abilities to go off and allow her to become a proper frontliner and tank for your team, is your second potential build. although we recommend to use Camille more for her synergies rather than trying to make her your primary carry or tank. As for compositions, Camille will shine the most in a 6 BladeMaster and 4 Hextech build, allowing you to take full potential of her origin and class. With 2 BladeMasters being 1-cost units, it's fairly easy to obtain this build. Once we get to late game, you can change her and or Fiora out for high-cost units like Yasuo or Draven. But on the other side, if you're trying to counter her, keep in mind that Camille does cause a taunt. So equip a tank unit with CC, a Thornmail, and position them in front of her. And now all these Blademasters will be taking a lot of damage. Next, we have the uncommon and 2-cost unit, Jace. Jace is a shapeshifter who will turn from a melee unit to a range unit, similar to Shyvana. His ability is Thundering Blow and Transform Mercury Cannon, which allows him to knock back a unit and then get max attack speed for a few seconds as he turns ranged. The knockback stun lasts 2.5 seconds up to 6 seconds. To put this into perspective, Sejuani, an epic unit's CC, only lasts for 2 seconds at level 1. So for a 2-cost unit to stun a unit for such a long period of time is pretty strong. He's quite beefy and does substantial damage, making him a great unit to pick up for an early Hextech or Shapeshifter synergy. Being 2-cost, it'll be easier to get him to 3 stars as well, which can ultimately disable a unit for a fight for 6 seconds. For position, similar to Camille, it's best to have him in the corner or behind the tanks. Although he is fairly tanky, he's not tanky enough to survive until his ability if you use him as a tank. He's best in a 2 Hextech and 3 Shapeshifter composition, allowing you to be flexible to add in wild, sorcerers, or brawlers as well. Gnar is the strongest Shapeshifter, so definitely pair Jace with him. As for the 3rd Shapeshifter, Nicolai can grant you the wild buff, or as mentioned, you can go for Shyvana and aim for dragons or sorcerers. Items that are best on Jace would be Warmogs, Titanic Hydra, and Red Buff. Although some of these items are not top tier in the meta, they do work great with Jace as it allows him to become a beefy damager dealer. Now we're going into the strong units. Vi is our next rare champion at 3 costs, with her class being Brawler. Brawler has been in the meta for a long time and sitting at the top during this patch. Her ability is Assault and Battery, where she will target the furthest enemy, knocking them up. She will also push aside everyone else during this movement, providing a decent CC and an advantage by changing the enemy's positioning. As with any brawlers, we recommend putting Vi in the front line. However, even though she is a tank, you do not want her to be the primary tank, as other brawlers like Cho, whose ability going off earlier is better, or Rek'Sai, who has more sustainability, would be a better brawler for that role. For items, Ionic Spark, Guardian Angels, Phantom Dancers, or Morellonomicon works great on Vi. As in the middle of the fight, she will leave the majority of the team to focus on the back unit, so ensuring her ability gets procced is pretty important. Due to her movement, she normally survives fairly long in a battle, allowing her to get better use from Ionic Spark. The items built for her is great for a good balance of tankiness and extra damage. For compositions, we recommend a simple Brawler Hextech composition. 4 Hextech and 4 Brawlers is strong, but there's an even simpler method. 4 Brawlers and 2 Hextech makes it much easier on your economy to get this build, and also allows you a lot more flexibility as you level to 7 and 8. You can then decide if you do need the 4 Hextech, or you can add a Void, Wild, or Gunslinger synergy. We actually have a video that's all about Hextech Brawlers, so be sure to check out our how-to guide video to get this composition perfected. Last but not least is our strongest unit, and everyone's favorite carry this patch, Jinx. Time to get excited, just like Jinx's ability. By far, she is the most popular champion to come out from this patch. Jinx's ability will allow her to first gain attack speed after her first kill, and then her attacks will turn to AoE damage after her second kill. Did you guys hear that? A gunslinger who attacks quickly and does AoE damage. How frightening. After a lot of reviews and games from our experts, our initial impression of Jinx being an A tier will be pushed up to an S tier. However, we are expecting her to get a significant nerf in the next patch, as many users are abusing her to win the game. She is by far one of the best carries in the meta right now, but who knows how long that will last. For the time being, position her towards the back line like any other carry units. However, if you're going against a lot of compositions that are running brawlers, then we would be careful about putting her in the corner spots. Blitz and Vi would end up being great counters against her, so we recommend you to have her in the middle of your units so she would not be the first to be focused by them. Best items for her is definitely Rapid Fire Cannon, Red Buff, Bloodthirster, and or Infinity Edge. Infinity Edge is, although a lower tier item, it does reach its greatest potential with Jinx, as she does AoE damage with her auto attacks, granting her significant damage. rapid-fire cannon to ensure her attacks don't miss, and letting her stay in a safer position, and a bloodthirster to allow her to sustain herself, making her a monster. Lastly, red buff overall is always an S tier item that's good on any gunslingers. So for compositions, gunslingers plus Hextech plus Blade Masters works wonders for Jinx. Gunslingers and Blade Masters have already been popular in the last few metas, but now that Camille and Jinx have been added, it has become much easier to create this build, along with the added Hextech Synergy. Alright guys, and that's all for today. From PvE experience, and as mentioned, we know that Jinx will be receiving a nerf in the future patches, but we're still anticipating her to be a great unit to incorporate for gunslingers and Hextech comps. There has been no word yet on nerfing anything else, but we'll be the first to let you guys know when there is. How do you guys feel about them adding this whole new synergy? Are you loving the new champions, or feel that they've disrupted the balance of the game? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you can get updated on all the new TFT content that comes out. See you guys next time.